Although I feel very young, my journey has been very long. My professional life has been checkered. I come from a small and politically oppressed Drongmite tribe, and it was not my original childhood dream to become a biodiversity scientist. My childhood dream was to become a medical doctor, a gynecologist. But that childhood dream was shattered. Then the next phase was when I decided to choose for a career in administration and I cleared the Nagaland Civil Services. But again, that dream was shattered. But I was and I am always really thankful for all these circumstances and challenges because those circumstances and challenges yanked me out of my comfort zone and made me strive for higher goals. And the thing that drives me is the acceptance that everything happens for the best. And yeah, I really believe that everything has really happened for the best. Sicilians is the world's least studied or most poorly known group of vertebrates in the world. And see, India is a well recognized global amphibian hotspot with remarkable species diversity and endemism. And within India, there are two regions, the Western Ghats and the Northeast India. Now, before I started my work, when I compared the geographical size of these two regions and the number of Sicilian species, that is the Sicilian diversity, um, I found out that there was a stark difference. So Northeast India is about, geographically, Northeast India is about twice the size of the Western Ghats with similar, um I mean, with a lot of favorable habitats, a lot of precipitation, but there were only 4 species from Northeast India reported in literature, and as compared to 24 species from the Western Ghats, a much smaller region. So this made me think and wonder whether there were really only 4 species of Sicilians from the whole of Northeast India. So in order to answer this question of whether there was really only 4 species, I decided to start a PhD on Sicilians of Northeast India. Well, first of all, Sicilians are completely misunderstood. There's a lot of folklore and very widespread misconception that they are poisonous snakes, so resulting in a lot of deliberate killing by local people. And another speciality about Sicilians is their evolutionary place in vertebrates. Amphibians are the oldest land vertebrates, and so they contain immense evolutionary information. And another special thing about them is that there are over 7,400 species of amphibians in the world, but out of that, only about 200 Sicilian species are there. So the question arises like, is this because they are completely understudied, or is there not enough taxonomists, or do they have really low diversity? Is there a reason for this low diversity? Why is the group restricted to the wet tropics? So it opens up a lot of challenging research, not only about their diversity but also about their evolutionary biology, their behavior, their reproductive biology, etc. And we don't really know anything about them yet. And every time somebody spends some time looking at the species of Sicilians, they discover brand new, uh, absolutely new kind of discoveries, like, for example, reproductive behavior. For example, my colleagues in 2006 discovered this remarkable form of parental care called skin feeding, where the young literally peel off the skin of the brooding mother and feed on them. So these are incredible discoveries that warrants more study, and essentially the Sicilians from Northeast India, more so those of Northeast India, are completely unknown to the scientific community. Every ecosystem only works because animals and plants have evolved together in symmetry in one place over millions and millions of years. It is that coevolution which has created the ecosystems that we see today. And there's a very delicate balance of what you can take out of that ecosystem before everything crashes like dominoes. If you knock over one domino, maybe it will not have a big effect, but if you knock over several dominoes, it can destroy the entire system. Now, a major problem that is faced by conservationists and biologists is that people are always looking at to save one species, but they're not, and they're not looking at the broader picture. But you have to understand that by saving one species, if you allow another one in the ecosystem to go extinct, you may have killed that animal already, you know? And all these animals need each other, and we need all of these animals in the ecosystem in order for the ecosystem to survive. It sounds complicated, but it's a very simple logic. You know? And we need every single species. We cannot allow any one of these species to disappear because it can have disastrous effect. And we don't fully understand what direct benefits Sicilians have for humans, but they are like soil engineers. They aerate the soil by burrowing through it and keep it fertile so it can affect us in that way. And amphibians are widely and popularly known as in having huge impacts as pest control. And they control not only the crop pests, but also major vectors of diseases like mosquitoes and their larvae. And we don't know yet, but for example, larvae of Sicilians could be feeding on the larvae of mosquitoes. So once these, and if you remove these natural protections that we have in the environment, you can expect disastrous effect on the human population in these disease endemic areas. Well, the discovery did not come as one sudden discovery. There were several parts to it, and there were several phases. Now, the very first excitement came, I remember, in October 2007, when I was on my own doing fieldwork in Centennial Village in Nagaland, where I dug up the first ever Sicilian samples in my life. And then in May 2008, in Assam, I found the Sicilian species that was described 100 years back and which researchers thought had already gone extinct. So when I found that samples, it was a rediscovery after more than 100 years. So on these two occasions, I remember shaking with pure delight, and I couldn't stop smiling, and I was desperately trying to get the phone network to call up my PhD supervisor in Delhi to share this great news. So yeah, it was really exciting. So that was the first two initial phases. And so after these two initial exciting field findings, I and my team began to find more and more samples of Sicilians from Northeast India. The discovery of a new major lineage of vertebrates that warrants being named as a new family is a rare feat in science, especially one so old. You know, the Sicilians from Northeast India was shown to be about 140 million years old, and some of the most amazing and unexpected discoveries were that its closest relatives were living in Africa. You know, and it caused a lot of excitement not just for our team, but when the research publications were published, it generated a lot of excitement in the international community, both in the scientific community and for the general public. And another excitement for me, especially as a native biologist, was that Northeast India was getting highlighted as a region with very special biota, and that the region was put on a global distribution map in a significant way. So yes, indeed, it's been really, really exciting. I never expected to make such a discovery so early in my career. My team and I had the gut feelings that the Sicilians from Northeast India were potentially very interesting, but we never expected it to be very ancient or for it to have unexpected genetic relationship with Africa's endemic Sicilians. My family, immediate and extended family, gave me and my team tremendous support to our research in Northeast India all these years, be it in helping for paperwork or arranging logistics, providing logistics, or even accompanying me on several expeditions, field expeditions. And most importantly, my family relieved me of all of my family duties, and especially my mom and dad, they have been my constant source of inspiration. My father was a cancer survivor for over 19 years, but there was not a single day or a single moment in his life when he called me back. And even towards his last days, when he lost his voice to cancer, he would look me in the eyes and nod and encourage me to go on doing my research. So, in honor and appreciation of my family support, extended and immediate, to our team's research in Northeast India, our team named Chikla species after my father as Chikla Gardwani. Well, he was very excited, and when it was published, I was not home, but the local newspaper carried the news, and it mentioned that it was named after my father. So he kept that newspaper clipping, and since he could not speak anymore, he wrote, "I am so happy. I'm proud of you." So yeah, I guess he was very proud of me. Don't you think it's nice to do here also? I got one here. So this is Ichthyophis sendeniu, which I and my colleagues discovered and described in 2009, and we named it after the village because the village gave us exceptionally good support to our team, and also Dr. S. Kemp, who's passed away, unfortunately. He was a very big time supporter of my research, biodiversity research. So, like I was saying, there's a very popular misconception about Sicilians that they are double-headed snakes. They rarely bite, but if they bite, it's poisonous. There's no cure like that. So it's a myth which I'm trying to erase from the mind of the people, and so I do this live handling, and I show them that they don't even know how to open their mouth, like I mean, you can see, and it's by touching yourself that fear is dispelled. So that's what I'm doing. There are several challenges to doing field-based research, especially in India, more so in Northeast India. For one, funding is exceptionally challenging to get. A major portion of funding in science goes to the profitable industry-based science. Another is the issue of most funding in biology going to research and conservation of the big and charismatic animals like tigers and leopards and elephants. And research indicated that scientists spend about 80% of their time writing grant proposals. And another major challenge is getting permits from the local authorities, like the forest department. Despite the scientific achievements and publications in prestigious peer-reviewed international journals, I and others like me are still being treated with suspicion and denied even the basic permission to collect few individuals from habitat which is being destroyed without any protection from the same authorities. And honestly, I have faced huge ignorance from administrators while pursuing for permits in several states of Northeast India. And despite explaining through presentation of how morphologically so cryptic these animals are and how it is impossible to study without samples, how it is impossible to study through photographs, or why and how they remain the world's least studied group of vertebrate animals, they would advise me that I come and do in situ research like other researchers do in big animals like tigers and elephants. And deliberate ignorance prevents the administrators from understanding and appreciating the fact that we cannot conserve a species if it doesn't have a name. And they wouldn't understand that in order to name a species, scientists have to deposit samples to National Museum. Now, here's an example of a conversation I had with a senior bureaucrat, a senior administrator. He heard the word Sicilians for the first time. I showed him pictures of Sicilians and told him about my scientific discoveries from Northeast India, including his own state. And then he turns around and says, after he saw pictures of Sicilians, he said, "I don't like the animals you research on. They look slimy and slithering. They must have a bad karma." And after a long conversation and making me run around for so many months, he refused to give a permit. And then I said, "Sir, I'm asking for only 5 samples. And the locals are deliberately killing them because they think they're poisonous snakes." Then he turns around and says, "Are you vegetarian?" I said, "No." "Do you not kill chicken to eat?" So, with that kind of deliberate ignorance, it's very challenging. Internationally, science is now practiced through collaborations, but the policies and rules in place in India are completely detrimental to academic study in biology. There is complete lack of organization in the powerful government bodies that function out of taxpayers' money, and they just make good research extremely challenging. And for an example, on the basis of my significant scientific findings and discoveries, I was awarded this prestigious European Commission funded Marie Curie Fellowship to do postdoctoral research in one of the world's most reputed natural history museums, the Natural History Museum in London. Now, I applied for a National Biodiversity Authority permit, the NBA permit, to allow me to carry some samples to London on temporary loan to do further research on the special biota of India. But the NBA took nearly 1 year to decide to realize that I was an Indian citizen and to realize that I did not fall under non-resident Indian category. So these are some of the administrative and funding. Apart from these funding and administration hurdles that we face, the big difficulty is also in finding the animals themselves because they're so secretive. They lead a very secretive lifestyle under the soil. There's been a lot of hardships, not just emotionally, but also physically. Being in the field throughout the rainy season, digging for Sicilians and all, it's really hard on your body. And just like every field biologist will tell you of several physical problems they develop that they would not have otherwise developed. But over and above all these challenges that I have faced, overall, it's been very fun and very fulfilling. Well, the public awareness program that I'm conducting is an independent project that I am currently running. It is funded by a UK-based organization called Rufford Foundation, and uh, and this Sicilian's dedicated public awareness program is the first of its kind in the world. And my target is not only the schools and colleges, but my audience has been the non-literate farming communities and the high and powerful bureaucrats, school children, colleges, and university. But my primary focus has been the children because they are our future leaders. Now, it's been very challenging to balance between cutting edge research and public awareness because it requires massive organization. But I'm quite surprised myself how much I'm enjoying it. And in the last 2 years, as part of this public awareness program, I've addressed nearly 5,000 people directly, sharing about Sicilians. And these 5,000 people were hearing the word Sicilians and learning about Sicilians for the first time in their life. And a simple math is that these 5,000 people would go back and share their acquired knowledge to at least 5, 6 people. So the public awareness is multiplied to about 30,000 people, you know, and thousands of people were given the rare opportunity to see a live Sicilian for the first time in their lives, and several hundreds of them uh, were uh, were getting a rare opportunity to hold a live Sicilian in their hands through the live demonstrations. So I believe I believe and I hope it's a massive contribution to conservation, especially at the grassroots. So overall, it's been very fulfilling and exciting for me, especially interacting with our own children, our future leaders. Amphibians are the first land vertebrates, so in a sense, we have a lot of responsibility to conserve the oldest land ancestors. And well, ideally, it is our responsibility to conserve as much biodiversity and as many species as possible. One could ask, why conserve anything at all? We are responsible as a species that has completely invaded and occupied every landmass. We are a species on the planet that actually alters its environment, typically for the worst part, not just for the species that lives there, but for ourselves too. So it is important to take some responsibility for the devastation that we are causing to the planet by actually trying to conserve these living creatures because it is now our responsibility and it is in our power to decide what lives and what dies. And it is in our power to decide what animals remain for the future generations to study, to enjoy them. And Sicilian is just a small part of that biodiversity, that huge biodiversity that needs to be conserved. Work hard, stop eating bushmeat, try to understand and appreciate the environmental pressure, preserve our environment. Now, in a way, every one of us is a budding biologist, whether they realize or not, whether they have an interest in biology or not. But if you do wish to become a professional biologist, do not allow the hardships to break your spirit and be aware that it is not an easy job, but it is really fulfilling. Now, if you are, I mean, you're not going to be wealthy by being a biologist, but the wealth you have is the knowledge and the contribution you're making to science, the contribution you're making to the society. And this is the legacy you will leave behind, you know. And your scientific publications will be read in generations to come, cited in generations to come. And this is the reward of being a good biologist. Now, and these people live in history forever.